Daniel Ricciardo of Red Bull Racing took the checkered flag for his first win in F1.
Daniel Ricciardo, you are our hero. You are a Monaco Grand Prix winner.
He's now one of the most experienced guys at the front, pushing for victories, pushing for championships. He's definitely got championships in him in the future, gets the right scenario.
He's going to get the victory now. It's McLaren and Ricciardo that win the Italian Grand Prix.
You know, there's a lot of belief that we have in ourselves. That's why I still do it. And I still believe I'm the best.
Daniel Ricciardo will leave McLaren at the end of this season.
I don't think we could have done something differently to make it more competitive.
I don't think he's as good as he was when he started.
It's a tricky situation, and as we all know, this is such a mind game, Formula One.
The future, what lies ahead, not sure yet, but we'll see.
You know, we'd had such a strong start to the year, and that was already becoming like a breakthrough year for me. And, you know, in a way we could do no wrong. Like, we were a points machine. We were just kind of, we were gelling and clicking and making things happen, but we hadn't yet won. And I think we got to that point where we both believed we could do it, but you need to prove it and make it happen. And
so I hit the lead, and all I remember was I literally told myself, I was like, please, hands and feet still work. Like, I was worried in a way that I would forget upshifting, and my hands would just freeze. And I was just like, come on, like, I believed I could do it, but it was a weird feeling. I was like, I had a fear that maybe I would just completely disintegrate under the pressure of about to winning my first ever race. I think the cool thing about that day, probably more than anything, is, and first win, because it's something you do dream of as a kid, even if you don't believe it, you know, till later in your career, but it is a dream since a kid. I was worried it would just be a big blur and I wouldn't remember anything, but I do remember so much of it quite vividly. And standing on the podium, that was something in a way, it's like I'd kind of visualized before, and everything just felt so amazing and so real. So I was just really stoked that it wasn't a blur and I could really enjoy the moment, and I still remember the moment. It hurt because I think, and with racing, unfortunately, there's so many variables, you know, and as a driver, you can prepare knowing you are in the best condition of your life, and you might have a terrible weekend for reasons unknown or for things out of your control. And that's where it's hard, because it's like, what do I have to do to kind of get this thing going?
Ricciardo is sat there waiting. Did he make the call? Did the team make the call? Whoever made the call, the tyres weren't ready. Fortunately,
I'm positive, and once I let the emotion kind of pass, I looked back on the weekend and I was like, it was a massively positive weekend. I was the fastest, I got my first pole, so time definitely heals most things, and I've always had that kind of mindset that it could be worse. Even a bad day for me that day was a second place in Monaco. You know, like one of the worst days of my life was a second place in Monaco. So I also I never want to seem like ungrateful or spoiled. You know, I know the competitor in me will show the frustration, but
exactly. It's like he'd gone into a heavyweight title fight.
I think the human in me will always appreciate the position I'm in and try and see that perspective. It was tough because I didn't feel the whole race had been managed well. You know, like Max and I were battling, and as far as teammates go, we're battling too hard. And I was surprised that the team didn't kind of put a stop to it. Yeah, I felt like I was giving enough room, but a lot of the time, you know, he was kind of coming up into me and banging wheels and that. And I like tough racing and that. It's fun and it's cool and it keeps you going. But I felt like at times, again, because we were teammates, I was like, why isn't the team addressing this? They pit me first and I was kind of confused. And then, so naturally, he pits after, comes out back in front of me. We're going to have the same scenario again. So I might have said, like, is he going to let me pass or something? Because I was leading before the pit. And I was like, you know what? I had no intention, obviously, of crashing, but I was not surprised. So when I went for it, I was just angry. I guess at that initial moment, I really didn't feel sorry for anyone. I just felt anger. That's how it was kind of all managed, I guess. That's just what you get when you got two young, determined drivers. You know, you get whatever, you get pride, you get egos in the way, and these things can happen, so.
Monaco's special. Like, it doesn't pay any more points, but it's special. It's like just significant, and winning it is something that you kind of keep forever. And then also my concern was defending Vettel, and then as Simon mentioned, I had to corner faster. So all of a sudden now, like the whole race I'd been managing my tyres and being smart. Now I've got to push on these tyres for the next 50 laps. So then I was like, well, these tyres are going to die at some point if I drive like this. So
probably 5 laps passed, and I could see I was actually staying afloat, and he was getting bloody close, but I was like, if I get this clean, if I get that corner clean, that exit, I reckon I'll be able to defend. And fortunately, Monaco's tight. So then my confidence came back, and I kind of grew confidence through the rest of the race. And I got to a point probably in my head, I told myself, if I get to 20 laps to go, I was still being in the lead, I said, I'm not losing this race. So that was my mini target. I said, get to 20 laps to go. So then I remember getting to that point, I was like, no one's taking this.
So when we did cross the line, it was just like, yeah, it was a bit surreal.
You are a Monaco Grand Prix winner, and you did it the hard way. You enjoy every minute of it.
Everyone goes through ups and downs, no matter how good or cool your life may seem, and maybe your problem may not seem as big as someone else's, but it's still there, and I think things can still eat away at you and build up. So I think just having a release and having at least somebody to talk to is really helpful. Season had been not great. I'm
going to have a tear in my eye here for Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah, Norris laps Ricciardo.
Ooh, that hurt.
Yeah.
I kind of just to myself said all right, it's time. It's time to stop sucking. I think when you have highs like that and you win, everyone feels it, and it's so cool because we ticked so many boxes on Sunday to make the win happen, and we nailed the start. The team did the fastest pit stop of the race, so to win it during the highest pressure moment, and for the team to execute, and to take me back out in the lead after the pit stop was awesome. So everyone felt like we earned that success and we earned that moment. So, there's a lot of belief that we have in ourselves, and that's why I still do it. I still believe I'm the best. But when it's been a while since you've done it, and when you had a year that I'd had, you wrestle it a little bit. So to kind of prove to myself that I can still do it, that was, a relief, but in that moment as well, I wasn't surprised.
Deep down, I knew this was going to come, so thanks for having my back, and for anyone who thought I left, I never left.
"2022 will be my last year with McLaren. Obviously, we put in a lot of effort on both sides, but it just hasn't worked the way we wanted. So the team's decided to make a change for next year. So we had a lot of discussions, but in the end, we mutually agreed that it was the right thing for both of us. I think as well, the falling out of a bit of love with it was also, took a hit on my confidence. And then, of course, if you're competing in a sport where you're trying to be the best at something, best in the world at something, it's obviously you need full confidence, full belief, all of it. And when that starts to diminish a little bit, I guess the enjoyment then starts to drop as well. So I guess when you're trying to go for the top in something, not everyone makes it. And so there's a lot of sad stories, so to speak, not everyone has the hero story. So I think it was just important for me to, remain perspective and also learn from it all. And I think it's if I truly still wanted it and had that desire, then I can learn from some of, let's say, my mistakes or things, some weaknesses, or I don't know. So I was trying to, as much as I didn't want to be in that position, I was still trying to find the good in it so that it could kind of move me forward and be a more complete version of myself. And that's what I'm certainly starting to feel this year, and being back in Red Bull and all that, it feels like, okay, all this stuff happens ultimately for a reason, I guess, if you use it the right way. I don't really look back on anything with regret. I think I would say they're not necessarily losses, they're lessons learned. And of course I would love to have won more in my career, but then maybe winning would have got boring and maybe I would have not appreciated it as much or whatever. So I wouldn't change it as long as I can continue to, I would say, just grow and become better from experience, then I'm pretty content. Pretty happy with the way I've gone about it. You know, I don't really look back and say, oh, I should have done that deal then, you know, I shouldn't have been so this or that. Like, pretty happy. If my career ended today, am I disappointed I don't have a world title? Yes, but could I have actually done anything to change that over that 10 years? Probably not, so c'est la vie.